Go. Welcome, one and all. We're open the season. Very exciting. And we are at actually a very exciting juncture in Masachet Rosh Hashanah, which is one that requires, as usual, a special Hakdama because it concerns how they would test the Adim to figure out if they saw what they said they saw. Okay. So the Mishnah begins. We start the Mishnah. Ketzid bodkin at Adim. I'm on Chav Gimel Amud Bet. Ketzid bodkin at Adim. How do they test them? Zug sheba rishon bodkin oto rishon. For the first group that comes, the first couple of witnesses that come, they're going to get checked first. The older among them, the greater among them. A little discussion about what that actually means. Do we have a Gemara?
Yeah. Down here and also right here.
Okay,
yeah. Thank you.
So we as the Omen law, we say to the person, Emor, Ketzad Ra'ita de Levana. We ask them, how did you see the moon? Lifnei Chama or Chama, before the sun, after the sun. Litzfona, Lidroma, to the north or to the south. Kama Haya Gavoa, how high was it, the moon? Ula Ayin Hayanota, which direction was it tilting or leaning? V'kama Haya Rachav, how big was it? How wide was it? Yeah. Im amar lifnei chama lomar klum. If he said it was before the sun, he said nothing. I'm going to explain all this. This is just the first reading. They bring in the second guy, separate from the first, ask him the same questions. If they say the same thing, they answer the same way. So idutim kayamet. Then what they said is going to be established. Yeah. But if not, right? If not, then it fell apart. You go to the next zug till you get to it. But if the first one worked and it goes through and they establish, they're the right people to testify. Ushar kol zugot, all the other people were in the waiting room. You might recall last we learned, which is a million years ago, it's last year. That was also a joke. One of my fifth grade rabbi used to always say, fourth grade rabbi, I think. They had a lot of food set up in the Chatzar in Yerushalayim. They had a lot of. There was a shmorg. Once the people were there, it's described this previous Mishnah. They want to make sure that they're going to be they're going to feel good. The seudot gedolot osim lahem. A lot of seudot. So let's say the first couple of witnesses that come, the first cut of Adim, are accepted. So what about all these other people? Thanks for coming. Go home. No, they wouldn't announce that they accepted the first two, and they would call in every single pair and ask them all the questions. How come?
To make sure they come back.
To make sure they come back. Nobody wants to go for nothing. So they would call everybody in. They would get their moment on the stand. They at least asked them. They wouldn't ask them with such thoroughness, but they would ask them. They want to encourage them to come back again in the future. So they don't want to make a situation where they're discouraged from coming. Yeah. So that was the Mishnah, first reading of the Mishnah. Now comes the introduction. I'm doing it in order. First, we learned something so everyone could say, "Oh, we learned some words in the Shas." But we have to have a little bit of introduction, and part of it's refresher, part of it is new. The first thing is to recognize that Chazal already know how to astronomically calculate when things are happening. They know. They already have that understanding. It's not news to them. They're not literally waiting on tenterhooks for the people to come in the door to tell them, is it Rosh Chodesh? They have no idea. They are waiting procedurally for someone to say they saw it, but actually they've already done a calculation. They've calculated 29 days have gone by, and this is the night of the 30th. Either there will be a moon that will be seen or not, and there might be extraneous reasons why it's not seen. It was cloudy, or I don't know what, or everyone was asleep at the switch, no one noticed it. Now, how could no one notice it, or how could a few clouds make such a difference? That we're going to see shortly why that's so critical. But the first thing to know is that Chazal have already done the calculation before anybody shows up. They know when the Mola, the whole thing is calculated. It wasn't just, they didn't just sort of come up with it, just at the moment when they're making the calendar happen, at least not in the view of the Rambam. And then there are a bunch of stages. On the 29th of the month, as the sun is setting, going into the 30th, the sun sets, and then only after sunset is it possible, in almost all cases, that's the only time. There is an exception, but in general, after sunset, that's when you can see the new moon. Now, the new moon is not the molad. The molad, remember, means the conjunction of the sun and the moon and the earth. If you were drawing a line through all of them, they're all lined up. At that moment, the moon and the sun are in sync. Okay? Normally, they're not in sync. They are close to each other at the beginning of the month and close to each other at the end of the month, right before conjunction, right after conjunction. Conjunction in Hebrew, the molad. The middle of the month, they are the farthest apart from each other. The moon is actually lagging, so to speak, behind the sun by almost a half of a night or half a day, depending how you want to view it. I'll explain this in a minute. But the time when you can see the new moon in the sky, which is what you need for Kriyat HaChodesh, is not the day of the molad, but it's after the molad. When we had this discussion on page 20b, how many hours after the molad is it? Is it 12 hours? Is it 18 hours? Is it 6 hours? There's a whole discussion, right? We had 18, maybe 12. We got a whole discussion about this. It was very complicated. There were charts, there were pictures. I don't want to open up that again, but we will open it again when we get to a later sugya. What you need to know now is that there's actually a very short window of time when that sliver of the moon will be visible. It's after sunset, because when the sun is still up, the moon, in terms of the amount of the moon that's going to have the sun shining on it, is so small and thin that is, in almost all circumstances on planet Earth, there is an exception apparently in South Africa. There's some area where there's habitation, the people who live there, where it is actually technically possible. But in most of the Northern Hemisphere, it's not really possible. Where, again, I'm not talking about the Arctic Circle. Sorry, I meant the main places where Jews live, in Asia, in Europe, in America. So the sun sets, that's where you see the sliver of the moon. And then you follow the moon, which sets not too long after the sun. Moon set. There's moonrise and moonset. And then finally comes the shkia of the Yareach. So there's really almost no possibility of seeing the new moon, because again, it's a sliver. It's not a big piece. Therefore, that means the reflection of what the sun is shining on is minimal, right? And then the moon is like that, because the sun is shining on it this way. It's a ball, so it's like this, and the sun shining on it. The sun is set, because when the sun is too close to it, you don't see anything, okay? Or if the moon is right behind the sun, which is, but you're not going to see anything. Or if it's underneath, there's not going to be any moon, because it's all, So what happens is that's the beginning of the discrepancy between the sun and the moon. When it moves away, and it moves in every 30-day period, 12 degrees every day. That's how you get to 12 times 30, get to the full circle of degrees, 360. So it moves. So one day in, there's going to be a discrepancy of a little bit. The sun will set and the moon sets right after. It's a very narrow window of time. It's like 10, 15 minutes. It's not like, oh, well, you look up, see the moon. It's obvious it's there. We have, 5 hours to see it before it sets. It's going to happen a few minutes later. So the Rambam points out, he thinks in Hilchot Kiddush HaChodesh, he thinks that after sunset, you have approximately 20 minutes. And then it'll be too late for sure. So the night of the Riyah itself, there are two factors that you're thinking about. Number one is that obviously after sunset, you have greater darkness, so there's more contrast. So now there's a visibility of the moon. However, you know that you can't look at the sun for more than an instant when it's in the noonday sun or any time of the day. But there is a time of day when you can look at the sun for a little bit longer, and that's at sunset. Because at sunset, the angle of the sun's rays toward wherever you are is weaker. The light that it emits is weaker, and therefore you can look at it for a long period of time. When the moon is in that position, its light is also weaker. It hasn't set yet, but it's getting closer to moonset. Unlike the sun, which radiates light, the moon only reflects light. So there's a bit of a catch-22. When the sun sets, so the moon is now more visible because there's more darkness in the sky. But as the moon goes lower and lower, its light that is now no longer hitting us from this angle, but rather from this angle, it's closer to the horizon, means that the light emitted from the moon, it's not emitted, excuse me, reflected off the moon from the sun is even yet weaker. And the closer the moon is to the sun, obviously the less time there is between the sunset and the moonset. But it also means, therefore, that there's not that much darkness on the horizon yet. Because right after sunset, there's still light on the horizon. So if the moon happens to go into that zone close to the horizon, right after the sun, too close to the sun, in terms of how we perceive it, you're not going to see the moon. Or you might see it for a very brief period of time. When the Rambam wrote 20 minutes after sunset, he meant 20 minutes after sunset, the moon's not up. He didn't mean for 20 full minutes we'd be able to see the moon. And this is why it's confusing, because, when I was younger, I always used to think, I don't know, it was so hard, but they didn't know how to look at the moon. Hire two guys, get them on a mountain, you stand, there's the moon. I mean, what's the kunz? But the answer is, it's a very short window of time to do that. And the amount of moon that you're seeing is the smallest possible crescent of the moon. When I've noticed it, personal observation the last period of time, I don't ever notice it. If you look up the beginning of the month, so we're sitting here, Congregation of Torah, east, west. So the sun sets in the west, the moon sets in the west. Okay? So first, just the east-west axis, about to bring in north-south, but east-west axis, it's always setting in the west, and it is following the sun. So when it follows the sun, that's what's going to happen. First half of the month. First half of the month is following the sun. First half of the month. Till 15th. But hold on one second, take a question a second. So that means that after the sun is set, and again, there's obstruction of buildings and all sorts of things. We live sort of on a plain, but if you live in a mountainous region, you have more of a chance of seeing the sliver of the moon, but not for too long, because it's playing off. What? Just 20 minutes? 20 minutes is the total amount of time that it would be. And the Rambam writes, Kimo shlish sha'ah. It's not exact, it's approximately. He doesn't have an atomic clock. He's approximate. A third of an hour is all it's going to be. So, but within that third of an hour, what I'm telling you is, if the sun has just set a second ago, the sky is still so light that there's not enough of the moon showing at all. If the sun has gone too low, then it means the moon, which is only off in the first day, about 12 degrees, is coming after it. It's a few minutes later, like 10 minutes later, and it's passing through a very narrow band where you could actually see it. That band is not constant, that you see the light of the moon reflected from the moon the whole way down, because when it gets closer to the horizon, again, depending on your elevation and the like, it may get swallowed up, if you will, by the light of the sun that's still radiating above the horizon. So there's like a band, not the horizon, a bit above it, but not too high up, where you can see the moon. And now you start to understand, if in the distance there was a cloud, or even the fragment of a cloud near the horizon, and the sun, and you've seen this if you've ever been to the ocean or whatnot, it's this, in-laws, in Israel, you look out the window or something in a porch. So a little sliver of cloud that's way far away in the Mediterranean, as the sun sets, that sliver also has the sun reflecting off it, but ever so slightly. And it becomes confusing. Was that the moon or was that a cloud? First introduction. Okay, please. Larry, first. We'll move around. Yehuda, yeah.
Two things. First of all, what you said, I think it's a wonderful question. Why don't they hire two guys,
Yeah.
put them on a mountain? Right.
Yeah. Apparently, there's another factor I didn't get into yet. I'm about to get to, which is why one of the other reasons why it was kind of like a toss-up.
Okay.
I didn't explain it yet. When I get there,
When you get
it's like, oh, okay, you're still gonna have a question, but now it'd be like, okay, now they got to hire like 8 guys or something,
So
12 guys.
you say Chazal do the calculation.
The Beit Din HaGadol in Yerushalayim know the astronomical calculation according to the Rambam before the Eidim show up.
So only because of the pasuk requiring 8.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is a nafkamina, and the nafkamina is if the Eidim don't show up, on the night of the 30th.
Right.
Then the next day will pass, day 30, and the sun will set, and it's day 31. And now there's a machloket, which we didn't get to yet, but we're coming to it. I don't think we'll get to it tonight. Which is, well, maybe we'll get to it tonight, actually. It's possible. Which is, do you need Adam the next night? What if you don't see the moon the second night?
What-
It's night 31 now.
But don't we know that it can't go beyond 30? I mean.
Right.
Right.
The point is, the first night you needed, because the pasuk, you needed the Adam.
Right.
But if you didn't have the Adam, second you didn't need the Adam the second night,
Because
because it can't go more than that.
I can't see any rationale for needing Aiden the second night. What could possibly the argument be? This,
The pasuk says that in order to be Makadosh the Chodesh, you need Adam.
So let's say.
That's what the Torah says.
But if you,
So there's a question. Well, maybe that's what it means. Maybe what it actually means is that you're not actually going to be able to call it a new month unless you actually saw the moon.
so.
Like, it's an opinion. I'm playing with it.
Magician
You know,
has 45 days
Yeah.
based on that, because you had very cloudy nights.
So you can't right, but as Art was pointing out, like there's clearly a limit. There's clearly it's not going to keep going and going and going. The month has 30 days. It can't be more than that. Otherwise, you're going to mess up the entire structure of the months, right? You're going to mess it up. So
And we
clearly there's something over here that we're trying to understand. Like what exactly is this
but we-
reality that
we
we're
learned it can't go over 30 days.
right? I'm just pointing out to Art, who said, well, it can't go over 30 days. And he's arguing sort of the astronomical side, which he's correct. It's 30 days. The month is over. Well, you didn't see, but I'm picking your side, which may not actually be your side, but I'm putting it on you. It's a great idea that the Gemara says, which is maybe the fact that the Torah said, Kazer Re'eva Kadesh. This is what you have to see and you have to be Makadesh. Because the Torah said, Chodesh Elechem Rosh Chodeshim, means that unless the Jews see the moon, it's not a new month. It goes against the reality. Who cares about the physical reality? We care about halachic reality. Yikov Adina Dahar. You never met a rabbi in Chicago who felt that way? Yikov Adina Dahar. You ever met a brisker? That's what they said. We don't care what reality is. There's only one reality. It's the reality of the Torah. It's the halacha, and that's all Shalom Yisrael. Now, Art knows that he's right because it's 30 days and that's the end. We know that. But again, I'm just imputing it to you because why not? You're a good person. But hold on. But Larry's correct. If we cared so much on the 30th night, I just finished telling you the rabbis already knew. So if they already knew, so it's a very nice thing. But they didn't come tonight, but it's the 30th night. We're announcing. Why are you announcing? You can't announce. The halacha is you have to have the Adam come. By the way, I forgot to say one procedural piece. The testing of the Adam happened perhaps at night, but they could not declare Rosh Chodesh at night because the Beit Din could not formally convene at night. So they really had to wait for the next morning. So the next morning, on the 30th in the morning, that's when they would say Mekudesh, right? And that would impact everything else. That's also why at night, if you forget Yel V'Yavo and Rosh Chodesh, you don't have to repeat, because at night, they were never Mekadosh the Chodesh at night. We do. How come we do? So how come we do it? We do it because we don't Mekadosh the Chodesh anymore. It was done already in Yerushalayim.
So
That
you
one
like
last time.
bonfires during the day?
No, they had to be Masin Masuot actually that night. Right. They had to light the fires that night. Correct. But we had this actually, the whole thing with the Friday and the Shabbos. Yeah. And then they would know, oh, it was yesterday. But then the question was, what if they lit it 2 nights in a row and they would skip? And that was the whole discussion. Yeah, please. Oh, wait, Judah was waiting also. Sorry, he had to stand up nicely.
We touched on it, but the Gemara doesn't mention it. We don't ask the AD who they were. when they saw the moon.
Interesting. No.
Because maybe mountains on the west.
Yeah, they didn't ask.
you
They don't
never
ask that.
see The Shkia completely.
They just want to know, what did you see in the moon?
I'm saying.
It's true.
So they.
It's true. I met.
The other thing is.
I mean,
In the time of the Torah, I don't think they knew the calculations yet. They had to rely on the AD. You know, this
in the beginning, when they're in Mitzrayim, for sure. מדבר?
כנראה בית שני.
יכול להיות. I'm telling you, this is what the Rambam basically seems to be saying based on Beit Sheni is the Beit Sheni, they already know when they're coming, the people coming, they know the answer already.
Now, we covered, last time I was here was last year.
Same joke, still funny. Yeah.
I
To some.
remember when they send the messenger to Babel, remember there's
Yeah.
the thing over there, and they appear 10 days later, etc., etc.
Till they get there.
Now, the local Beit Din, they knows the calculation, can
No,
do the,
No.
they have to
Good
wait
question.
those
no.
time-
Good question. No, even if they know the calculation, correct. Even if they would know the calculation, they couldn't do it. Why? Because that's where we get to Kiddush al pi re'iyah means it's happening. The Beit Din Hagadol is authorizing, is announcing, and then they're going to have the messengers arrive. That's correct. It's not because they, even if they did the calculation, they still don't know. But what happened to Yerushalayim? Yeah.
You know, there is an area, I think it's in southern Jerusalem, it's called Givata Masua. This is.
יכול להיות שזה קשור. יכול להיות שזה קשור.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you one other thing related to this, which is that we did have a discussion that the Gemara had said at one point previously, it never happened from the days of Ezra, that they ever had to add a 30th day to the month of Elul. It was always 29 days. We had a line like this.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It means the people in Bavel were betting, we know when it is, we count it up. It's gonna be now. And if in the off chance there was a mistake, there could have been a mistake. But the claim is like it never happened that way. Somehow it never happened that way. But
So anyway, so according to the view that you need Eidim even the second night, so it goes beyond the second night. So now what happens the following months? Do they start accepting Eidim on the 28th day or the 29th day because they went too far? Or
When do they start recounting?
right, or do they start recounting? That's a good question. I don't want to answer you because then when I get to Gemara and a blot from I say, oh, we already learned this already. It's so boring. But it's a good question. Hold that question. These are excellent questions the Gemara itself is posing.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
I'll throw you another curveball. You're doing Kiddush al pi re'iyah. So if you hold, you have to do the Kiddush al pi re'iyah the first night or the second night. What if it's cloudy the first night and the second night and the third night and the fourth night? Okay, that's going to be a problem. So you say, oh no, after 30 days, the next day is number one, no matter what. Okay, next day, the next month. Also, it's cloudy both nights. It's going to be enough. If you do this for 4 or 5 months in a row,
You
Right
still,
away,
still wind up being off. Yeah.
you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So, it's not so hard to figure out. Mar Cheshvan, Kislev, Teve, Shvat. You couldn't find 4 winter months where that happened in Yerushalayim? I think you could. I think you could. So what do? You punt, right? So we'll get to that because there's a discussion about this as well. But this was thought of obviously because at some point the beautiful mitzvah and the system bucks. It's like it's in friction with the reality of the astronomical piece, which is also bound up with halachas.
Yep.
Like Chodesh Aviv, you have to have Pesach and Chodesh Aviv, so it has to match with a solar calendar. So you have to keep that calibrated. But if you've mushmut, right, v'chule, you can keep going. Okay, so that's the first thing. But now there's another sort of monkey wrench to throw into all of this to understand another dimension of evolving. I just told you the east-west axis as if everything's on a straight line, but it is not on a straight line. It is not on a straight line. There's something that we need to talk about, which has to do with, you could call it the almost the thickness of the moon. The thickness of the moon. I mean, the moon's the same size all the time, but that sliver, what's it going to look like? So it turns out different times of the year, that first sliver is thinner than other times. The sliver is sometimes called a chermesh in this farm. It's a sickle because it's like a blade. So the one thing is the thickness, which is going to impact visibility or lack thereof. And another issue is going to be the altitude. I mean, I did tell you there's like 12 degrees difference between them on the first day, right? That's true. But depending on where things are in the solar system, and where we are, I should say, in the solar system, how things are moving around, the moon may be viewed higher in the sky in that band that you could see it, or lower in the band. That's confusing, I know, but I'll explain what I mean. But these other two factors we need to keep in mind. It'll depend on the season, but not necessarily in the way that you think. So, for instance, when you talk about the altitude, depends on the time of the year relative to the constellations, the mazalot. Siman Tov u'Mazel Tov Yehelanu L'Chol Yisrael. Amen. Yeah. Siman Tov u'Mazel. That's what it is. The Mazel Tov.
We say that.
We say that. So what's the Mazel Tov? What's the Mazel Tov? The Mazalot. So you remember, just reminding you again, it's a very odd thing to consider, but it's the reality. And again, I'm working from our perspective, which is not accurate to the astronomical reality. It's our perception of the reality, right? Right? We are the ones moving in this whole story. Nothing else relative to us. They are moving, but relative to us, they're not moving. We're the ones moving. Yeah? Sun's not rising and setting, the earth is spinning, but we don't talk about it that way. Okay? It's the same thing with the constellations. The constellations are moving across the sky because really we're moving under the sky. Again, under is itself in quotation marks. There's no real under and over, but you understand. Okay, fine. But our perception is that way, and that's the language I'm using. Don't confuse it. Oh, the rabbi really is kind of out to lunch about what's moving and what's not. I'm out to lunch about a lot of things, but this actually no. What? Yeah, so we're right. We're moving this way, so that things seem to be moving that way. Okay. But the constellations are also moving. Remember? They're also going across the sky. Now, depending which mazel is at the horizon at the time of sunset, right? And there's one mazel all the time at sunrise and one mazel all the time at sunset, right? Because there's 12 mazalot. The mazalot are no more than the dots of which someone drew lines in order to be able to orient what they are. And then someone else made it into Avodah Zarah. Ayin Sham, it's our Parsha Shavua, beginning of Hilchot Avodah Zarah, Avodat Kochavim Umazalot of the Rambam. That's what he calls it. Avodat Kochavim Umazalot. That's why it was called that. And it's about Avram Avinu, looking at them, knowing the Mazalot. And the Chaldeans were very into this idea in Babylon because it was a plain. So they had a wide sky. In Chaldea, in Bavel, plain. That's why it's a bika. That's the tower. I don't know, maybe the tower is for Kiddush HaChodesh. Never thought of it that way, but maybe I made that up. That's not true. But right. But the depending on the time of the year, at the time of sunrise, whatever constellation is at sunrise, there's the east. Whatever constellation is going up with the sun, that's the month that it is. Okay, so Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, and it keeps shifting. Whatever's going to be at the time of sunrise, time of sunset, right? We talked about this, the movement. Okay. It's very confusing, I know, but that's the basic thing you need to know. Now, depending what the backlight is, what the kind of constellation is behind the moon will actually impact the visibility. Because everybody knows if you're in a dark theater, but everybody, I don't know, turns on their flashlight on their phone, you don't see the screen as well anymore, especially if they're standing right up against the screen or right behind the screen. So that's going to make a difference. Which mazel is at the horizon at that exact time? That's another one. Another issue is what is the angle of the moon relative to the mazalot? They're not all going in one track across the sky, but there's actually they're kind of at an angle. I'll explain it in a couple of minutes. You everyone's heard of the Milky Way? So we used to think we didn't know what the Milky Way was. They were called nebulae. They had all sorts of names. They were kind of out there. No one knew what it was. So it turns out it's stars. But even if you don't know that it's stars, and you think it's some kind of gases out in the sky somewhere, out in outer space, that gas is white and milky looking, and it emits some kind of light. Now, it turns out we're not looking at the Milky Way galaxy. We're in the Milky Way galaxy. We're a dot in the Milky Way galaxy. Chaviv Adam Shnivra B'Tselem, Chibi Yitera Shnodad L'Shnivra B'Tselem. Right? Kiva understood this, but wow, amazing, right? But it's also very humbling. So based on where we are in the Milky Way galaxy, when we see that stain, so to speak, across the sky, you can see it in summer nights sometimes, right? It is it's kind of milky. That's why it's called that, but it's really emitting light. You just don't realize it. Where does it make a big difference? Well, if the moon is right next to it, kind of thing.
Mhm.
It's going to be harder to see. So when the inclination is largest away from the Milky Way, so then it's more visible, the moon, because it's far away from it. That's in the Chodashim of the Aviv, in the spring months. It's easier to see it. But if there's smaller angle between the two in the sky, then actually the exact opposite. It's like in the fall. The moon is even closer to the horizon. It's even harder to see because there's something else in the backdrop that's kind of messing things up. The general rule is as follows. And now we enter the next axis in all this. So far, we've talked east-west. Everything goes, it's moving that way. But it turns out that there's also an axis north and south. And depending on whether it's spring or fall, the moon will either be in the north or in the south of the sky. So if you had a compass and the compass showed you exactly west is straight ahead, I'm making it up, it's straight ahead, you'll note that depending on the time of year, well, first of all, in the east, the sun, doesn't always doesn't rise exactly in the east. It's a little to the south or a little to the north, depending on the time of year it is. And the same thing is true on the opposite side in sunset, but also in moonset. So the general rule is the farther north the moon is of the axis, the closer it is, I would say, let's say Dempster is exactly east-west. The more it's aiming towards, Devonshire, Church Street, Gulf, Old Orchard, it's never going to be north. It's not going to be Crawford, but it's somewhere in between, still closer to Dempster, but it's a little bit angled. The more it's to the north, so it's actually going to show up in the sky a little higher in the horizon when you see the new moon. That's how it works. There'll be sunset and then moonset. It'll be a little higher in the sky when you have that band that I was talking about before. We can actually see it. Sun is still up, no, invisible. Sun is too far down, invisible. Moon gets to the horizon point and close to it before moonset, very hard, almost impossible to see it because there's still light radiating up from the sun. So there's a band, a space in the sky between the horizon and whatever you want to say, how many degrees it is, where you'll be able to actually see the moon after the sun sets. Springtime, it's that way. And when you're getting this way, it starts to become colder out. It's the fall. Okay. And that's what happens. The farther south the moon is, so then the lower above the horizon, the moon is when you can see it, which means you have a shorter window of time to, saw the moon, because it's disappearing much quicker. Now, the reason why this is true, why this happens, why this works, I'll explain to you momentarily. Yeah, please. Yes, but you can see the Milky Way, the concentration of stars of the Milky Way across parts of the night sky.
Okay, now I understand.
Part of the night sky.
Yeah.
So that's the point. But
Part of the Milky Way.
part of the Milky Way. Yeah. Well, I'm saying you don't see the Milky Way because we're in it. So you see part of the Milky Way that's closer towards the center of the ring, I believe. That's what you're seeing. Okay. So, but it's so far away. Again, in 19 teens, I think in the 1920s, they still did not know what it was. It's not hundreds and thousands of years old that we knew it was stars. Thought it was gaseous clouds. They call it nebulae. The star, I'm saying, we just didn't know. We just didn't know. Mind boggling. We just didn't know. We didn't know about the Bria. Now we found out new things. Hashem allowed us to come to a point where we could discover these things. Yeah, it's not. None of these things are Prometheus. Lahavdol fe'avdallah. That's for non-Jews. By us, atachon and la'adam dad. Every time we figure something, right? It was that Jew. What's his name? Einstein. You've heard of him? So Hashem gave him the beam of light through his office. Sitting in the patent office where I was in Switzerland, and he's doodling, and that's what happened. It's just a patent.
Not only that, in the parasha,
Yeah.
read Noah,
Yeah.
Shem promised to
Yes.
change better.
Yes.
So this was
Correct.
very-
And that the seasons would continue. The Yom of Lo Yishbotu, I'm butchering the words, but that's, yeah, correct. Now, there are a bunch of questions that are asked over here, right? In order to understand the questions, there's one other piece that I need to explain, which is as follows. We have the east-west axis this way. We have a north-south axis that goes this way, right? So sun and the moon are going that way, right? And we have a north-south axis. And I just finished telling you that depending on the time of year, springtime, the moon, the moon is setting over there. And in wintertime, it's setting more over there. It's moving across the sky. Imperceptible. You don't see it, you don't notice, but that's what's happening. Yeah. And to understand that, okay, so now I gave you, east, west, north, south. There's one other dimension, which is the following. The way, at least in Eretz Yisrael, and it's true for anything in the Northern Hemisphere, that's the truth, but the model is always Eretz Yisrael. The way it works is that actually it is, how should I explain it? It is east-west, the axis, the sun, but actually the sun is rising in the east. It's coming up, but it's not coming straight up in the east and going straight down in the west ever. It's actually, when it comes up, it's on its own, imagine a gigantic ring that goes under planet Earth and comes back around. That's like on a track. It's not on a track. People used to think it was on a track. Not on a track, but the track is gravity. It's going around. The moon is going around, okay? But the moon is not going around, coming straight up and straight down. It's coming in on an angle like this. The video is going to be really weird. It's coming on an angle, which is why when you have, where's the sun? Where's the sun at high noon? Right. But mostly, if you had to pick a direction.
From the northern hemisphere, it's to the south.
Correct. Yeah. And this is the reality in Eretz Yisrael all the time. The sun, when you say high noon, so you always think, I'm going to look straight up. But the truth is, it's always a little bit angled toward the south. Okay, now why is it angled toward the south? Because it's making a massive circle, east, up, and down. It is a loop, but the loop is not like we think, oh, we're on planet Earth, so it's coming straight up and down. It's not. It's going on an angle like this, up and down, up and down. And therefore, depending on the time of the year that it is, our perception is it's as if stuff is moving around like this way and that way. It's not really shifting. It's our perception based on what's happening with the seasons, etc. The seasons are because the constellations, the revolution of the Earth around the sun. Did I lose you? So that's what's being asked of these Adim. Did you see the moon before the sun or after the sun? Question number one. Did you see the moon before the sun or after the sun? What is before the sun? Did the moon set before the sun set, or did the moon set after the sunset? Now, this is a patently obvious question. If the moon was ahead of the sun,
you wouldn't reflect.
You wouldn't. What would you see?
Yeah.
Nothing. So they're catching on a simple question. Question number two: was the moon to the north or to the south of the sun? Now, why does that matter, the north and the south of the sun? Because again, when we talked about this, the way that it works, when it's in the northern side, so then the sun's going to go down and then the moon's going to go down. But when it's on this side, past the median point of east and west, and the north, more to the south, so then it's going to go down. It's going to look the opposite. The element of what's concave will actually be perceived differently, whether it's in the north or the south. So it's asking the tzfona ludroma, and it's relative to the sun. It's relative to the seasons. And the Gemara's first question on those two questions is going to be, didn't you just ask the same question twice? It sounds like you just asked the same question twice. We'll get into the Gemara in a second. But the last three questions are, how high was the moon? What was the tilting of the moon? This way or that way? And the answer is different depending on the time of the year. And how wide or thick was the moon, which also has to do with, yeah.
So is the point of asking the question, did they know what the answer should be, or because they want to match first aiding and the second aiding, just it would come up with the same answer?
Both.
Yeah.
They need technically to have both Adim say the same thing, but they want to make sure that no one's lying, because you'd always want to be the guy to say, it's Nissan because of me, So there's always that guy. I mean, they didn't get paid for it, but there's like a covered factor, because the whole Jewish people relied on what I said. It was amazing. Great. So you want to do that. But the idea really is they do basically know the answer, but they're verifying that what these people say they saw, they actually did see. Now, by the way, if they didn't see it and they're canceled, there's another group of Adim waiting behind them. Yeah. Another group of Adim. By the way, this also explains, because it's always so strange. The Edom are lining up. So how about the Dayanim are looking at the sky too, but they didn't see it? They wait for the Edom. But it turns out, is it winter? Is it summer? Is it, right? What's the location? Where are you? Are you in a mountain or in a valley? Are you, all these factors. Is it cloudy? Is the cloud in this part of the sky? Is the cloud in that part of the sky? So if it's Chodesh Tammuz, it's not going to be too cloudy. Probably not at all. It's not impossible, but it's not likely. But if you're in Chodesh, like I said, Mar Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet, Shvat, Adar, Choliot, maybe even Nisan. So there.
What happens if you get through all the 80 and you don't get ready?
So right. So you go to the next day. Go to the next day. The question is, what happens if the next day no Edom come? Do the Edom have to come the second day also? Doesn't seem like you need it. But you still need a Beit Din to declare. Does it not declare? Does it just it's going to happen naturally? That's what we went through before. We'll get back to that. We'll get back to that. So, but you know, this whole complicated piece is really just a prelude to try to understand, you know, that when we speak about, you know, the sun being in the south at noon, it's not literally in the south, but it's a little bit tilted off of the exact straight up point, a little bit to the south, because actually the gigantic ring of the orbit, I can't believe I'm saying the words because, you know, someone's going to listen to this and be like, this is crazy. The orbit of the sun, perceived orbit of the sun around the earth, it's on this massive loop. It's not going straight up, straight down. It's coming in itself at an angle, which is only perceived when it's at top, at the zenith, at the noon, when it's angled a little bit to the south. If the moon will precede the sun in the journey west, so that's going to be Lifnei Chama. It's going to be to the north of it. If the sun goes first, and then the moon comes after the sun, then it's going to be south of it. And v'chulei. So that's the beginning of this Gemara. I just gave you Rashi's approach, where it's Kate said Bodkin at Edom. All right. So here's what Rashi writes. Rashi says, Kate said Bodkin at Edom. This is just trying to understand the Mishnah. So labyrinthine is he even get to the Gemara yet. You understand the Mishnah. So Achama holechet la'olam mimizrach ladarom, umidarom lema'arav, umimarav latzafon. Now what is tzafon? The moon is in the north at one point. The sun, I mean. You don't see it because it's under planet Earth. Now, it's under planet Earth also. It doesn't really make sense. By the way, when you're standing here and, so to speak, if you could look through planet Earth, the sun went down in the west. It's underneath the Earth. It's over there. It's actually really in the north. It's because it's a ring. So if up here it's south, so down there it's north. But obviously when you're down there, it's in the south and that's in the north. Understand?
Yep.
It's not absolutes. Everyone with me? You understand what's going on? It's kind of mind bending. Yeah. There is an app for those who are interested. I don't remember what it's called anymore, but many years ago, someone in my family sent me a link to an app where the app is like to see the astronomy, to see the sky. You have it? So listen to this. This is why this is germane for this top. Okay, there you go. So you download this thing. Now listen to what it does. The amazing part is you can shine it at the sky, right? And you can see all the different, I don't know, I'll tell you the star, this, the planet, I don't know. But if you aim it at the ground, it pretends planet Earth isn't there and it tells you where things are through planet Earth. So you want to know where the sun is now? Well, I don't see the sun. Where's the sun? So you go down. Oh, the sun is underneath the planet.
That's the same as just going to the southern hemisphere.
Exactly. I'm just pointing out this app is cool because it takes away the notion of a horizon and flat land, and it just gives you the sort of the sky, which is actually not just 180 degrees, it's really 360 degrees. Just we never see the other side. So again, it was like little dots, but like, you know, you want to know where, I don't know, where the sun is now is a good example. So you aim it like, you know, it'd be like down here. Oh, the sun's down. So if you aimed it to the north, you would see that the sun, if you aimed it at the ground around midnight, you'd see that it's actually a little to the north. How come? Again, because it's on an angle up and down. Says Rashi, who never had such an app. I know for sure he never had such an app. Okay. Ketzid bokin at Edom, v'chule lifnei Chama. Hachama holechet la'olam mimizrach ladarom, umidarom lama'arav, umima'arav latzafon. Shenamar, holech el darom, says Kohelet, v'sovev el tzafon. V'halavana Einan nir'et b'yom shloshim le'olam el samuch lishkiat hachama. It can only be seen on the 30th day, meaning just close to the time of sunset. I mean, close time of sunset after sunset. Right after sunset, that's when you can see it. Shemitoch shehi daka uktana. It's thin, it's small. When the sun is still in its strength, you can't see it at all. Because there's so little of the moon to see. Midalo katane lemizracha ulamarava. Shmamina eniret lahem bedarim. Since it didn't say to its east and to its west, right? The expression is not to the east and to the west of the sun. It means to say it's not going near eight lahem bedarom. It won't be seen when it's to the south, i.e., when the sun is high. Because salkadaitach shows sholim to edim. You're of the opinion here, because the question to the edim, question number one is it before or after the moon? But the second question is it to the north or the south? But never mentioned east-west. So, kasakadal shehu sholim to edim imra'u ma'alech lifnei chama ola achareha litzfona shechama reitem ota oli drama shechama uvegemar parich lifnei chama hainu litzfona. The Gemara will ask this exact question. Question 1 and question 2 are the same question. Shari ein nachon livdok v'lishol im lidroma. You don't ask if it's to the south. Oli tzfona is what the Bach adds in. El bisman shishneim hachama v'levana b'ma'arav. When they're both in the south. Shim heim badarom. If they're really in the south, up north, up in the sky. Eni choliyot litzfona v'lidroma. Ela ola mizracha ola ma'arava. When the sun is in the south sky, that it's either going to be that side of it, to the east of it, or to the west of it, because it's the south sky. At noon, they never asked that. Ushem b'ma'arav, sunset. Im lifnei chamahi zeli tzfona. If it comes before the sun, then it must be to the north of it. If it goes before the sun, it must be that it was if it's before the sun, it sets before the sun, then it must be to the north. Shahari letzad safon him olchim v'im lacharehi harizel letzad darum. And if it's after it, then it must be to the side of darum. After and before doesn't mean the sequence of setting, but what is closer to the east-west axis is what we're referring to. So, kama hayagavoa mina aretz lefi riyat einechem. How high was it off the ground? La'ayin hayanota roshe hapagima le'ezit tzad notin le'tzad safon kazeh or le'tzad darum kazeh. Which way did was it concave? What was the concave? To one side or the other? The Gemara will explain what this means. So I realize we just hit 803 over here. Let's do 3 lines of Gemara, just 3 lines. So we finished this piece of it. So that's more than 3 lines, but I'll read fast. Rashi already gave us what the question of the Gemara is. If it's before the moon, again, before doesn't mean it's set before the moon. It means it comes before, means it's somehow closer to the median line. So then it really be litzfona. If it's before it's farther away from the median. It's farther north, right? Hanu litzfona automatically. Hanu la'achar chama. Hanu lidroma. If it's after the moon, after the sun, so then it's farther south. Somewhere Abaye, no. Pegimata lifnei chama ol achar chama. What the first question is, before or after the sun, is which direction are the pointy parts, or rather, where's the concave part? So the concave part, is it facing away from the moon, from the sun, or facing the sun? Now you understand scientifically, it's always going to be this way, because this way, if it would shine on it, then it would be this way, like this, because it's shining on the reflective surface of the moon. So the Amar Rabbi, right? Sorry, Im Amar Lifnei Chama Lomar Klum. If it said the concave part, the pagima, the missing part, is facing the sun, then obviously forget the rest of the testimony. What does it mean when it says in the pasuk in Parshat in Sefer Eov, Hamshel v'fachim yimot oseh shalom b'mromav? What does that mean? Me'olam lo ra'ata chama pagimata shel Levana. Never did the sun see the concave part of the moon, meaning the injured part of the moon. V'lo pagimata shel kashet pagimata shel Levana. All right. The sun never saw the pagimata. Sorry, v'lo pagimata shel kashet. It never saw the concave part of the rainbow from our parsha of last week. Pagimata shel Levana. Why not the pagima of the Levana? How come? It's a theological answer, not a scientific answer. It's amazing, but it's on point. The chalsha daite. It'll make it feel bad. It's seeing its embarrassment, shame that it's missing a part of it. Pigimata shel kashet, the lemru ovde hachama geire kamashadya. You shouldn't say if you see that it looks like this, the rainbow, and the sun is over here, right? You'll say that maybe there are arrows being fired at it because it looks like a bow. Looks like a bow. So therefore, it's always this way. Yeah. By the way, one of the Rishonim does say also the reason why it's the shape that it's in is because if you were using a bow and arrow, right? If heaven was using, so to speak, a bow and arrow, so the bow part, which is bent, would be facing the enemy, and then the string is straight. But if you wanted to show that you were meeting a friend and showing that you're at peace with them, you would turn the bow from the bow and arrow backwards so that the curvy part was facing you, because that would mean you'd only be firing on yourself, and you wouldn't do that, but you wouldn't be firing on someone else. It was a mark of peace, which some say, by the way, later on was the outstretched hand, which became that. Yeah, you turned it around. So the bow, the keshet, comes like this to show, so to speak, that kiviyachol, it's like a Kodesh Baruch Hu Shemaim, turning around the bow. It's nothing against. It's a beautiful idea. We're in a little bit of Gemara. Let's stop here. Shkach, next week, Monday, we'll get back into it. It's gonna get more intricate, but you're learning great things, hopefully, about the sky and that Hashem made. Okay, Adkan, and the Gemara, and that Kodesh Baruch Hu provided for us through the agency of Chachmei Zichron Bracha.